Hey, what's up folks? Today we're going to be installing new Swaybar bushings in the Lotus Elise. I picked these up from Blackwatch Racing. They're about $25, $30 or so, and looks like should be a pretty straightforward job. Mine were starting to show cracks like around all the edge of the hole here, so I figured it was time to replace them. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is jack the car up, get both the wheels off, and take off the under panel, which I've already done here. You can see we're safely jacked. It's a little bit dark. You can probably see that I've got the under panel off there too. It's a number of little 8mm bolts. If you have an impact gun to remove them, it will save you a lot of time. All right, now the next thing we're gonna wanna do is remove the Swaybar end links here. It says to do them both, but I think we should be able to get away with just doing the lower one if we can get it. So there is there's a flat spot in here to hold the nut, and then we're gonna try using the impact on the other side. All right, next thing we're gonna do is take the shocks off, the shock and springs. Technically, you don't have to do this, but it makes it a little bit easier to move the suspension around because there is one bolt for the sway bar down here that is basically, here, let me show you. This bolt right here is basically, you're not gonna be able to get a tool in here because you got this suspension in the way. So you wanna be able to move the suspension up to get that out of the way so you could get an Allen key in there. The top one actually has a little access hole in the bracket here, so you can stick the Allen key right through that. You can maybe see the hole there. So it's really hard to compress the suspension with the spring and shock attached. And on the Lotus, it's super easy because it's just this 17mm and 17mm at the top to get the shocks out. So we're gonna go ahead and do that just to make life a little bit easier for that bolt. All right, so I got the shock out, pretty straightforward. No spring compressors or anything like that needed. Now we're gonna do the other side. All right, next up, we need to remove the two 6mm Allen bolts that are holding the sway bar in place. So that is this bolt and this one up here. Yeah. Okay, now you can see the sway bar is completely disconnected. Both the bolts are out. In fact, part of the aluminum bracket will probably fall off as you take that off. And the sway bar is free. So the next thing we have to do is actually, from one side or the other, there's this piece that's riveted in. All right, so I did end up needing to take off the inner fender liner. It's actually really easy to do. But you need to take that off in order to get to the rivets here that you need to remove. This is the little plate that you need to actually remove to get the sway bar out. So that's what we're gonna do next. We have one more to get here. I think I might use some snips or something to get that one out. All right, got the bracket off. Just drilled out those little rivets there. There were 3 of them, and basically just fell right off. Now we should be able to remove the sway bar, I think. Success. Got the sway bar out. I think we're good. All right, here you can see a little bit what I was talking about. Sway bar bushings, a little bit cracked there at the end. So that's why I thought it would be good to replace these. Next thing, we're basically just gonna remove the bushings from the sway bar. They have little locators on them here, so you can't push them on too far. They'll stop in the right place, but it'll be probably a little bit of a challenge to get these off. Whew. Got it off. A little bit of work. All right, we got old bushing, new bushing here. And you can see that actually in the new bushing, it's actually grooved in there. So you want to put some of the grease that they give you with the bushing kit in here and make sure you work that into the grooves really well and then slide it on. And then maybe even put a little bit more in if you can get it in. But you definitely want to make sure these are lubed well. Went on pretty easily. The old ones came off, you know, not too bad. Make sure you lube those things up with the grease that they give you. And then installation, it's just basically reverse of what we did. So we're gonna put the bar back in and then bolt it up into the mounts and then reattach everything. And that should be it. Sway bar is back in place. It's not fully mounted. Now I just have to re-rivet these, this little panel on here, and pretty much it. Then bolt up the end links and then put this stuff back together. I always like to take a little bit of extra time when I'm putting this stuff back together to check everything and usually like kind of give everything a cleanup, because you know, it's not often that I have all this stuff apart, so I usually just like, you know, probably get some spray and just kind of spray this stuff down and wipe it down and look for any kind of damage and stuff. But overall, like for example, that air conditioner hose up there, that's kind of got a little bit separating the cover on it. I'm gonna do something to just make that a little bit better. Okay, sway bar is back on. Now we just have to put the shocks back in and put the under tray on and hook up the end links to the sway bar. You actually want to do that last part, hooking up the end links, after the car is back on the ground and you've sort of rolled it forward and back a little bit, because you don't want there to be any preload in the sway bar. So you want to make sure it's sitting on a nice level surface and then bolt up those end links. And actually what I decided to do on the under panel, I decided to add a little bit of sound deadening material to it, because these things tend to make a lot of noise. I also put some like gaffer's tape in between where the edges mount here, hopefully to just reduce vibrations and a little bit of noise. I don't think it adds a whole lot of weight, this damping stuff, and hopefully it'll increase the usability of the car a little bit. All right, so the last thing that you need to do for the Swaybar install is, remember we left one of the end links undone. You need to do that up once the wheels are back on and once the car's back on the ground. And actually I would suggest rolling the car forward and backwards a little bit, or just driving it a few feet forwards and backwards to help settle the suspension so there's no preload on the Swaybar when you attach it. And I'm going to show you, actually, you can actually just turn the steering wheel and get in there and attach the Swaybar really easily without jacking the car back up. So here, if you leave the steering wheel, this was the side that we left undone, and if you leave the turn the steering wheel all the way to the side, you should be able to get in there pretty easily. All right, that's it. All set. Everything's fastened up. You got your wheels torqued. You got your Swaybar end links torqued. You got your shocks on. You're all set. Those bushings should last you for another 10 to 15 years. So go out, enjoy your car.
Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to ring the bell so you can get notified when we post a new video.